Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Abhidhamma Study Class with Siara Pinyadi Kalingara. This is the 24th class, and today we will be going over the first part of universals and occasionals when going over mental factors. Before we begin, we would like to invite Siara to lead us in opening with Namo Tassa. Siara, if you would like to lead us.
Okay. Let's pay homage to the Buddha, reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa.
Thank you very much, Siara, for leading us in Namo Tassa. We will now begin with the Abhidhamma Lecture. Siara, you would like to begin the lecture, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone to Abhidhamma Study. Today, I will study about the mental fetters of asama. Asama is translated as ethically variable fetters. Okay. So here, we have studied about the 2 class of Abhidhamma on the mental fetters. So there we study, we have studied about the characteristic, and after that we study counting the 52 mental fetters, classifying into 3 groups. Anasamana, which is translated as the ethically variable fetters, and akusala, wholesome fetters, savana, beautiful fetters. Then today we are going to study about the ethically variable fetters of anasamana, 1 by 1. So here the first group is savajita saradana. So as I have mentioned in the meaning of the word savajita saradana. So here the direct translation is 7 universal fetters. This universal fetters. But if we follow the meaning of the Sabhajita Saradana, so Sabha is all, and Jita, consciousness, and Saradana are connected to or relevance to. So in this way, these 7 mental fetters connected to all kinds of consciousness. And this way, this is translated as the universal fetters. So let's count the number 7. Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Jirana, Ekagata, Jivitendriya, Manasikara. So as you have reviewed already, and I think you already remember the 7 mental fetters. And also, again, I would like to encourage you to try to remember before we continue studying the whole mental fetters, 52 mental fetters. You know, if you think about the 52, it seems quite a large number. But if you think only 7 here, it's not difficult. So Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Jirana, Ekagata, Jivitindriya, Manasikara. Then translation also contact, feeling, perception, volition, one-pointedness, mental life faculties, and attention. Okay, so in this lesson, let's study about the meaning. So the meaning of Phassa. Here, if we define the ultimate reality, I've introduced the 4 kinds of 4 aspects to identify the ultimate realities. Mostly we can identify by 4, sometimes by 3. And yeah, the 4 aspects or 4 identification of the ultimate realities are characteristic. The first one we call it lakkhana. It is characteristic. If there is no characteristic, it's not realities. There's according to Theravada Abhidhamma. So whenever we see something in relation to under the name of realities, so we have to find out the characteristic. What is the characteristic? Do you remember what is the characteristic of consciousness? Citta.
Recognize, aware, and knowing the object.
Of course, yeah, right. So that is the consciousness. Without that characteristic, we cannot see the consciousness. So if we see what is Phassa, we can see, we can recognize the Phassa as the touching. So if there's no touching, there's no Phassa. Because there's no physical entities of the mental fetters or mentalities. And that's why we can only identify by cognizing, by knowing their characteristic. So you just need to aware the characteristic when you find out the mentalities. Otherwise, it is impossible to identify the mental fetters, mentalities at all. So here, the first one is characteristic, the lakkhana, and second one is function. So when they arise, mentalities perform their specific function. And then another one is manifestation. It's called the Paṭipatti. That is, when the meditator, by this concentrated mind, observing the mentalities, then when the mentality is at present, it appears into the mind of the meditators. And the appearance is called the manifestation. So when it is observed by the concentrated mind, it appears in this way. It's called manifestation. And the approximate cause. Approximate cause is the closest condition to give rise. So in this way, the lakkhana characteristic, the rasa is called the function, and manifestation is called Paṭipatti, and Padatthana approximate cause. These are 4 ways of identification for the mentalities, or most of the time we can say the ultimate realities. So here I will not introduce all 4 aspects of identification because it will be difficult to remember, and also sometimes even to understand is not easy for a beginner. And you can check in the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma there, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi already explained most of the aspects. But here I will explain to have you remember and understand what are the mental fetters, which is called the universal fetters, related to all kinds of consciousness. The first one, phassa, has the characteristic of touching. So when you identify the phassa at present, so you can aware touching. It does not mean physical touching, you know. It possible sometimes, you know, through the touching of materialities, we can say that phassa. So if we relate this and this understanding to the sutta and the explanation in the Pali text, it's called Chakkhung cha Paticca, Rupan cha Upachati Chakku Viññāna, like this. Let's review the three aspects arising. So in the process of seeing, so let's consider how you see something. How you see something in the process, you know. But there must be chakku. Chakku is eye sensitivity. Eye sensitivity, chakku, and rupa. Rupa is, you know, the visible form. So rupa is visible form. Chakku is eye. So eye and visible form coming together. So when we consider the process of seeing, so we will understand there is eye in our body. So eye sensitivity, which is called a kind of materialities, and that can capture the visible form. So it is a kind of the power of materialities. Then rupa, there must be visible form. If there is no visible form, you cannot see. So that's why when you aware, or eye consciousness is arising. So we can see there is already, you know, the arising of eye consciousness. Arising of eye faculties in your process and in physical process, right? And as we have said, all the mentalities and materialities are arising in the process. So in the physical process, there must be eye faculties. So eye faculties arising in your physical process inside your physical eye that capture the visible form, which is called something to see, you know, the kind of materialities. So coming together, two things, and given the combination of two things give rise to the eye consciousness. Without any of these two, if there is no eye sensitivity in your mind, in your eye, physical eye, or there's no visible form, you cannot see. It means eye consciousness cannot arise. Then, in combination of two things, visible form and eye sensitivity, and eye consciousness arise. It means there are eye consciousness arise means that you see something. At that moment, you know, in the Pali text, it is said that Tenan Sangati Paso. So, coming together, or occurrence of three things: eye sensitivity, visible form, and eye consciousness. This is called touching. This is called touching. So touching mentalities and materialities, three things. That is the characteristic of the touching. So in the process of hearing, when you hear something, So ear consciousness arises. That ear consciousness cannot arise without your eye sensitivity, ear sensitivity, and sound. So three things come together: sound, ear sensitivity, and your ear consciousness. In this way, we can identify that in 6 kinds of process: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So in the mind, the mental object, and the bhavanga, we call what is called bhavanga, and they come together. Then they give rise the mind, the other mental process. Then in this way, there is touching, the phassa. Whenever consciousness arises, phassa arises, because the touching of the object sensitivity or the bhavanga and the arising of mind, they come together, and that's called the phassa. That's why when we talk about the function of the phassa, so this is characteristic, or touching is characteristic. So when you observe the phassa, and you will know the touching, that is phassa. So without the touching, you will not know the phassa. So whenever consciousness arises, there must be touching. Touching, it means the consciousness cannot arise without object. We already said that. When the consciousness arises, there must be object. Object and consciousness arise, the touching together. That is the characteristic of the phassa. So every time consciousness arises, the phassa is there. In this way, so mental factor of phassa can be identified. Then, and if we talk about what is the function performed by the phassa when it arises? So impingments mean the consciousness. In the process of unconsciousness, the impingement of the eye sensitivity and the visible object, visible form, the object. So sensitivity and object, the impingement, and that is the function. Sometimes it is quite confusing if you just think about this, or how is possible or like this. Just thinking about how we see. It means the visible form and eye sensitivity, they bump into or touch into that. That is called the impingments. And so this is phassa, and another one is vedana, feeling. So feeling is here, the explanation comes, the bare effective quality of an experience. So here, just experience. Sometimes if we talk about the feeling, the meaning is very strong. Or we feel something, is we obviously feel, or feeling overwhelming in our mind. At that moment, we recognize the feeling is there. I feel something, obviously. But this mental factors of feeling is not referring to only the obvious feeling. Many times we confuse, or if I don't feel, that consciously the obvious or the prominent feeling in my mind, there's no feeling. We are thinking that way, but actually, as every time the consciousness arises, feeling is there. We have to remember, feeling is one of the universal factor. So there must be feeling. That's why it is said that there affect the quality of an experience. An experience to what? So experience to object. So when the consciousness arises, there must be object. The consciousness experience to the object. That is feeling. It does not mean I feel, there's something very strong. So this is, we have to know this is just a mental fetters. Mental fetters sometimes when it is very strong position, when it is in very strong position, it take over, there is overwhelm all the other mental fetters and the consciousness and manipulating and very obvious position. But sometimes it just perform its function. And at that moment, we don't recognize. And sometimes the other mental fetters are standing in strong position, and we don't recognize the others. When the feeling is very strong, you don't recognize the phasa like this, but actually there is phasa. At the same time, when you are keeping the mind in the perception, strong perception, at that moment you're thinking that I don't recognize the feeling, the function of feeling, but actually there is feeling. So in this way, we can understand these mental fetters are just a function of the mentalities, group of mentalities. So I mentioned that when the consciousness arises with the mental fetters, so they coming together, performing their respective function. So the contact is when the characteristics of touching, that Vedana just feeling, they just experience. But when they come together and performing their function, and we know this is one mind movement like this. So to say the one mind movement, the every mental fetter, Cetasika, and consciousness, Citta, they come together and perform their respective function. They come together, mean their characteristics appear. So this feeling also like this, whether it's pleasant feeling, if we feel pleasant feeling, we understand or we aware it's okay. I know the feeling, it's good like this. And painful, or we also know what painful feeling I have, and I know it's not good, right? But sometimes the neutral feeling also. For the neutral feeling, we don't know mostly, only when the meditator observe the mentalities by their proper knowledge and strong concentration on the neutral feeling is there, we know. But most of the time, and without the pleasant or the painful feeling, we are thinking that there's no feeling. And many here in some meditation techniques, they are talking about the elimination of Vedana, elimination of Vedana. And that's actually is not like this. During the process of meditation, the mind is there, consciousness is arising in the process. As long as consciousness is arising, feeling is accompanying. So we cannot eliminate the feeling, Vedana there. So we have to make sure after studying Abhidhamma, Theravada Abhidhamma, I don't mean there are other teaching, because we are teaching about the Theravada Abhidhamma. So according to Theravada Abhidhamma, only when there someone entered to the Nirodha Samapatti, the cessation of the attainment. At that time, there's no consciousness. So if there's no consciousness, there's no Vedana, you can see, and there's no sanya perception. So these are two leaders of the mentalities. That's why we say the Vedana and sanya, it means there's no consciousness at the moment. But the other time, when your consciousness is arising, so the feeling and perception as a universal fetters, they will accompany the consciousness. So there is feeling, and there must be feeling, and there must be perception. Okay, so here the characteristic of the feeling is Vedayita Lakkhana. It's called the being felt. Characteristic being felt. So when you find or is there any feeling? Yeah, there must be. If so, I have to know because I want to contemplate on feeling, the Vedana-nupassana, like this in the meditation technique. So Vedana-nupassana. If you don't know what is Vedana, and no, you cannot practice the Vedana-nupassana. So let me ask the question there. Cold and heat. So when you feel cold or when you feel heat inside your body, so is this feeling? How do you think? Is it feeling? Cold
That
and
is
heat.
Teja.
Teja. So is it feeling or not?
No, not.
Right. It's not
the
feeling.
characteristic.
Yeah.
Materiality.
Characteristic of the Tejo.
Right. Of course. Good. You have good knowledge already. So there's something cool is Teja. Teja means the Teja Dhatu is one of the materialities. And heat the same. So cold and heat are the characteristic of the Teja Dhatu, the fire elements. All right. This is materialities. But only when you aware, so you being felt, that feeling, that is feeling, the cold and heat is not feeling like this. And that's why this is just a bare effective quality of an experience. We should not misunderstand cold and heat as cold and hot heat as a feeling. So if we understand, cold or heat, that is materialities arising in my material process in physical body. And knowing them, the consciousness, a function, one of the function is being felt. Just a characteristic, that is feeling. And so we need to try to differentiate materiality to mentalities. So this materiality is this cold and heat, and the characteristic of being felt is the Vedana, or we can say the feeling. That is not very strong. Very strong, and sometimes it's say that unpleasant or painful. If it is strong, cold, or strong, heat, when you feel the unpleasant, this or the painful, and sometimes pleasant in the balance, and sometimes you don't not much pay attention on that, and then neutral feeling comes. So, but there must be feeling any moment, every moment of the mind, every mind moments. This is feeling. So what about the others? The context or the other manifesta or even consciousness itself, aware to the object. How they don't feel or something like this. If we ask that, the example is given that when the king ordered the food to prepare the food, then the man who prepared the food for king, he trying to taste and to check whether this is the poisonous or something like suitable or tasty, or he check. and the king eat. So when the king eat, he enjoy that all the full function of the taste of the food. The feeling is similar to the king in that case. So experiencing the taste of the object, that is feeling. And the other mental factor, although they connected to the object, they just taste only a part of the object, because they have to perform the other function. For the pasa, it has to perform the function of impingement, that is impingement. So touching. So by the touching, although it experience to the object, it cannot or have the fully experience of the object. But for the feeling, its characteristic is being felt, and it's just the experience to the object. That's why And feeling is similar to kin, and the other mental feathers are similar to the one who prepare food for the kin. Although it just a taste, the connection, something have the connection, but not fully experienced on the object. This is the example to explain or the feeling according to the Abhidhamma explanation. Then the third one is sanya, perception. Okay, this is also one of the function when the consciousness arise and knowing the object, there is touching, the consciousness and the object, and the being felt or feeling there. But what is the perception? So this perceiving of the qualities of the object, here, the qualities of the object, because this sanya, it has to perform the perceiving. Characteristic is perceiving. That's why it cannot experience fully, completely, because it has another work, another function to perform. And this given, the example is given that when the carpenter he makes the building, that he need to cut the woods, and he makes some marks by the pencil or anything else, any items, using that and make the mark. After making mark and measurement and making mark, that mark, and he see by that mark he knows what it means. In the same way, when the consciousness arise, the sanya arise together, then that sanya make the perception, the keeping something inside the mind, inside the mind, inside the mentalities, and giving, that's by that mark, the another thing, sanya, another perception. No, if we see someone at the first time, we capture or we keep in mind, or his name or his appearance, or he has something, that distinguishing marks in this way. And then later on, when we see next time him, that the same person, we remember, oh, this is his name, and he has this kind of appearance like this. So the perception is that the former perception give the later perception to keep the consistency of the remembrance. So this is the work of perception. It is compared to the marks, the recognition of the carpenter. The carpenter makes something in recognition is in the woods like this. So our perception, when it arises, and it store some memory inside the mind like this, inside the process, if we see it keep in the mind, or the mind is not everlasting, it's always changing, but it's in the it's continuing the force. So this is the function of the perception, just store in the mentality something. So that's why perceiving of the qualities of the object. Then jirana is volition. So the volition there, that is the state of willing. So we already explained about the jirana in relation to the karma. So 29 karma or like this. And when it comes together with the wholesome or unwholesome, we call that is jirana, this karma like this. But that jirana is universal. Now you see the universal. That's why whenever consciousness arises, there is jirana, there's volition. So I introduced that the others are the volition arising with the other types of consciousness, not wholesome, not unwholesome, the resultant or functional. When they arise together with the, when the volition arises together with the resultant or functional consciousness, it's just, the state of willing. The state of willing. It means is giving the motivation to the other mental feathers to perform their respective function. So it's give the encouragement Tassa to perform like this, and Vedana Sanya like this. This compared to the chief pupil, chief student. When the students studying together, the leaders, it is perform its own work, its own study, performing his own study, and also he encouraged to others, other friends, you go study like this. And here the volition performing its own characteristic and its own text to perform. Then, and it's also giving encouragement, giving motivation to the other manifestors to perform their function properly. But it's not like our people, because that's the function of the mentalities. And this state of willing, and at the present of state of willing, the others manifestors are performing willingly in their feathers, their function. So, and also another aspect you have to keep in mind when you study about the volition, there is karma. There's karma when it's come with a wholesome or unwholesome consciousness. It's called karma. It has another aspect, another potency to produce the result in the future. There's the potency, we can say the potency, that is karma paccaya sati. Karma paccaya sati. And only the karma paccaya sati, that is can be the cause of the resultants. Then the fifth one is ekaggata. Ekaggata is one-pointedness. So here, ekaggata also, do you remember another name referring to the ekaggata? What is another?
Samadhi.
Right, samadhi. But as I mentioned that not all samadhi, not all ekaggata is samadhi, right? So ekaggata is unification of the mind on its object, like this. So here the mind means the unification of the mentality. We can say that the mentalities, all the consciousness and mental fetters are unified by the power of ekaggata. To focus on the object, this is one of the characteristics here in mental fetters. The characteristic among the four characteristics of mental fetters, Cetasika, the one is the same object, keeping the same object. And here, ekaggata, one-pointedness, it make the unification of the mentalities and consciousness coming together. So by this power, by the power of the ekaggata, we say the mental cluster or mental group, they are coming together and unified by the power of ekaggata. So this is also universal, one of the universal fetters. It arises in every consciousness, in every moment of the consciousness. Even when the odaja, the distraction, odaja arise, the unification is there. Although there's distraction to the object, the one object to another object, and not in one mind movement. So the first, the one process, another process, odaja sahagata, like this. But there also in the mind movement, one of the function ekaggata is there. Without this, or the mentality, they cannot focus on the object. So ekaggata performing this, the unification is present in all types of consciousness, because this is universal fetters. Even the most rudimentary, so this is very fundamental situation also, it is unified. Basically, it is unified. So non-wandering or non-distressing. It does not mean keeping the same object in many mental process. It just means in a specific mind movements, in specific mind movement, the feeling is going to the one object and the perception is another. It is not possible, because it is unified by the ekaggata and keeping the same object. So this is the meaning of the ekagata. And the samadhi is one of the function. So when it comes with the higher consciousness or I would say the strong position of the consciousness. Sometimes even the akusala, is called the samadhi, right? At the moment, akusala also samadhi. You may surprise that if I say that, akusala chitta also have samadhi. Yeah, someone playing game, concentrating on that, and enjoying that bhava mula. Then also, we call it samadhi. And someone fishing, fishing and concentrating on his fishing pool or something, and someone playing, I say the cut, or at that time concentrating on that is also called the samadhi. This is called the miccha samadhi. So samadhi can be in both sides, sama samadhi and miccha samadhi. In good side is called the sama samadhi. In the akusala side is called the miccha samadhi. And it is in strong position. And normal, or the basic condition also there is called the one-pointedness. So at that moment, we just say the one-pointedness. And when it's become in strong position and performing, and by the power, producing some powers, is called, at that time we call this is samadhi, whether it is good or bad. Okay, then, and Jivitendriya. Jivitendriya is the mental life faculties. So there's two types of Jivitendriya I have said there, and mental life faculty and material life faculties. So these two, this mental life faculty keep the mentality alive. So the other mentality performing, but by the power of the Jivitendriya, we can say, they are alive like this. And because this maintain the associated mental states. And for the materialities, the Jivitendriya, materialities, life faculties, it keep alive like this. So it also maintain. The example is given that in water, in the in the stem of the lotus. So there, the water is inside. That water keep the lotus alive like this. In the same way, it's there inside, but it maintains the associated mental fetters. Then the last universal fetter is manasikara. So manasikara is making in the mind. So attention or making in the mind. Making in the mind, that the mind's advertence to the object. Making in the mind mean advertisement to the object. So connected the group of mentality to the object. So another mental fetter is also doing this. Can you guess what is that? Another mental fetter doing this very similar function.
Vitaka.
Right, of course, vitaka. So in this case, we have to know what is the difference between the manasikara attention and the vitaka, the initial application. This is a very popular question in the Abhidhamma exam. Abhidhamma exam is mentioned there. So
Vitaka is one of the jhana factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can say one of the jhana fetter. That is only when it's come with the come with the Mahagata Cetasika, Mahagata Chitta. That's time we can say that is one of the jhana fetter. But if come with the sensuous pure consciousness, it is not jhana fetter. So we can say the vitaka in both sides. Sometimes jhana fetter, sometimes it's not jhana fetter. That the normal common vitaka. And But here the difference between the manasikara, attention, and vitakka, initial application, is explained that the former turning, that when the consciousness arises, it seems that it is turned toward the objects because of the consciousness itself know the object. So the former turning toward the object, just turning, it seems to the function of manasikara. And like this, if you drive and then you just turn around your car toward the direction you want to go, and that turning, that the mind turning toward the object, just turning is considered as the function of the manasikara. And once you move your car, first attempt is considered as the application, the initial application of vitakka. It means they are compared to the manasikara's turning is later one. So turning is first, and applying toward the object is second activity. So although they are arising together at the same moment, when they arise in the same group, and they perform this kind of function. So turning is the work of manasikara, first turning, and the later applying is considered as the work of vitakka. So in this way, we can give the difference, different meaning of the manasikara and vitakka. Otherwise, this manasikara and vitakka are the same, we consider, or it's just confusion. That's why we say that it is very hard to identify the mental fetter one to another, because they have a very similar, very close function. And even when we trying to study, we're trying to understand, still many confusion, In this way, we appreciate the Asian teachers, the senior teachers' knowledge, and the Buddha, whoever make this kind of differentiation. Okay, so turning towards the object is because it's say that advertence. So advertence, just that. This is manasikara. And so by the virtue of which the object is made present to consciousness, here make present, just make present, not attending to the object. Just make present means you just turn to that direction like this. This is called manasikara. The conducting of the associated mental state to the object here, not only turning itself toward the object, it makes all of the mentality that are arising together, associated mental state toward that object. This is the function of, this is the characteristic of manasikara. Once you observe your mentality and the something, the mentality is making in all the associated mental state toward the object, that is manasikara. That's manasikara. And in this case, there are three types of manasikara. The later on we will explain all. But now, if you want to take a note, and then you can note down the three types of manasikara. One is aramana Paṭipadaka. So aramana Paṭipadaka. And the second one is Paṭipadaka. And Javana Paṭipadaka, like this. So these are called the manasikara in other case. So aramana is just giving a rise. So this one, keeping all the mental state toward the objects. And Paṭipadaka is Panchadvara Vajana, like this. Panchadvara Vajana in the 5-door process. The one is the 5-door adverting consciousness. It's turning all the mental process toward the specific object. So that's why in Panchadvara Vajana, the 5-door adverting is considered as a kind of manasikara, keeping in mind. You keep in mind something to see, something visible object. So you see at that moment the 5-door advantage comes first. And Javana Paṭipatti is the Manodhara Vajana. Manodhara Vajana in the form of the Vattabana or the Manodhara Vajana, mind-dot advantage or Vattabana. It doesn't matter, we will see later in 3 types, just introduction. So this is Manasikara, just keep in mind. So keep in mind the object, it means turning toward the object. Okay, let's see here. There are another group of Pakinaka or occasional feathers. So the former group of 7 feathers, they are associated with all kinds of consciousness. So whenever consciousness arises, they arise together. But in the Pakinaka group, the occasional feathers, they are connected to every group of consciousness. Every group of consciousness. We say the Akusala group, Ahituka group, of the beautiful sense-sphere, beautiful consciousness group, or the Rupavachara, Arupavachara, and Supramundane. Or if we talk about these 6 mental feathers connected to all group, but they are not always associated with the all consciousness. And for this universal feather, they always, but here not always, and also not all the times, all the case. So that's why we can say this occasional feathers. Sometimes they arise with some consciousness, and with some consciousness they are not arising together. And sometimes they arise, and sometimes they don't arise in this way. Okay, let's see the Vitakka. Vitakka is the application of the mind to the object. Here, application, not only turning or not only adverting to the object, it just make the application to the object. And compared to Vichara, the Vitakka is earlier. Vitakka is considered the earlier performance. So Vichara is translated as a sustained application. So it's for the continued pressure on the object after application or the continuing or like this. But actually, when they arise together, we have to understand. Not Vitakka first and Vichara later. It's not in that way. Although they are arising together, their characteristic is different. That's why Vitakka initial application and Vichara is sustained application. Otherwise, we cannot identify Vitakka and Vichara. And so, in this case, we can say the Manasikara is the very earliest function, seem to be very earliest, just turning, and the Vitakka application and Vichara continuing like this. But these three are arising together. Okay, so when Vitakka is cultivated through the concentration here, it becomes the feathers of jhana. So Vitakka sometimes come with the concentration, the certain level of concentration, and that is called jhana. And Vitakka come in the common sense. It's not jhana feather, it's just Vitakka initial application. Yeah. When you think about something, that Vitakka comes. But it's not associated with the Dvipanja Vijnana. That when you see something, at the precise moment of seeing, so there's no Vitakka. Like this. Okay, so we will see in the cognitive process. So it is also called the Sankappa. Okay, that's one. Sankappa. Where we can find is Samma Sankappa. Like this. Samma Sankappa is one of the feathers of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Samma Ditti, and second one is Samma Sankappa. So Samma Sankappa is the function of Vitakka. And also there is Miccha Sankappa. So Miccha Sankappa come with the akusala consciousness. the Vidyaka performing the round on the application that is called the Micca Sankappa, right thought. If we translate the Samma Sankappa, right thought, and the Micca Sankappa, wrong thought. So it's also called the Sankappa. The characteristic is directing to the mind onto the object. So this is directing, not turning, not just turning, not just making present. Okay, so vichara is not difficult and is continual. So the difference between vidyaka and vichara we already explained here in the study of the Rupa Vichara Citta, right? So vidyaka is like a bird spreading out, so it just went to fly, and vichara is the gliding, so in the air like this, and also the bee starting, and or bees, the buzz, the buzzing, or the stretching out of the hand the first time. It's called vidyaka, considered as a vidyaka, and the wiping on the dish or vichara like this. So you can review that if you want to know more about the vidyaka. Okay, so sorry. Then adhimokkha, this is translated as decision. Decision is by the power of adhimokkha, we can say that the mind releasing to onto the object is compared to the stone pillar owing to its unshakable resolve regarding object. So in this case, when this is not the same as the making decision, although it is translated as decision. No, we cannot do anything because we cannot find the better word. Although if we translate decision, it's easily confusing. Oh, by the power of adhimokkha, we are making decision like this. But actually, this power of mental fetters, this is you have to aware. All these are just the fetters. The one fetter not fully functioning. Only one fetters of the mentalities. So making decision just to that, compared to the stone pillar, owing to unshakable resource. Okay, this is very strong. That's why this translated as decision. But it's the regarding object, only the regarding object, not making this is good or this is bad or something like this. Whatever they keep in mind, you making decision. I will do this or I will not do this. You make decision. I will go or I will not go, and that kind is done by the process, Javana process. You think and then you make decision like this. And this is not this kind of fully functional decision is not done by this one. Because this adhimokkha applying to many consciousness. And only my movement is considered of just a part. If there's a 38 mental fetters, and so it's only one part. You cannot make like this. So making decision and to do something, or I will chant, or I will meditate, or like this kind of decision is done by the process, or not only one function. That is not only one mental fetter is done. It's done by the process. Oh, I'm thinking and keeping in mind, and then I will meditate. Or today I'm lazy and I'm not meditating like this. Or the process is making that decision. So this is just the giving it a strong position in relation to the object. So by this power, the consciousness is the conviction toward the object. And that's why the function characteristic is conviction. This conviction. So you should not confuse this. Make many decisions, good or bad, or do or don't, like this. Then viriya, energy. So energy is just as a new temple added to an old house, prevent it from collapsing. When the house become old getting old and is going to collapse, then if you put a new temple in proper way, then it's sustained, it prevents the collapsing. In the same way, by the energy, the mentalities, they can stand strong. They can perform their function in energetic way, strongly. That this is the power of energy. So this performance very obvious. The consciousness with the energy and consciousness without energy, like this. So when the energy is strong, the other mental factors also performing their function strongly, like this. Then just as the strong reinforcement enables the king's army to defeat the enemy. So like this, when they get the motivation, the proper motivation by the good leadership, and the army can defeat the enemies. Without them, it cannot. Like this. In the same way, the energy uphold and supports to all the associated states, and does not allow them to recede. So, not letting them backward or the making lazy, supporting and exertion, like this, marshalling. So given this position of this, to be strong, position to be strong, that's the work of energy. That is viriya. And some consciousness come with viriya and some not viriya. And piti, zest, that is enduring sampiyayana. So this also we already see in the jhana padas. So piti. Sometimes it is not jhana padas. The piti, even with the Lobha Mula consciousness, like this. Lobha Mula consciousness, there's how many somanasa?
4.
Yeah. Together with the 4 Lobha Mula consciousness, somanasa consciousness, the piti can arise. So when the piti arises, it's joyful feeling come. So endurance. This is piti. And so this is compared like there, when the traveler in the deserts, it's very tired. At that moment, he see the water in the oasis, and delightful feeling coming to the mind. It's not really feeling, but rejoicing in the mind. It's called a piti. And chanda is the desire. So here, as the stretching forth, so desire, although it is translated desire, you should not confuse with the raga or lobha. So lobha also, we see desire to eat, like this. It is desire. That kinds of desire is lobha or raga. But this chanda desire, just the stretching force of the mind's hand. Actually, mind does not have hand. But the mind is stretching toward the object. It's also, different from the application, not really applying to the object, but is similar to the stretching out of it is hand toward the object to catch up. So wishing to connecting to the object, that is called chanda. It's not the lobha. Lobha have the meaning of akusala. But chanda does not mean the anxiety akusala. Sometimes maybe akusala side, but sometimes kusala side. When someone, I want this, I want the water bottle. Why you went? You want to drink or you want to enjoy? No, not for that. I want to offer someone. I want to donate someone thirsty. You just went to offer, to give. That's chanda, not the attachment for that case. And that's why sometimes the desire chanda come with the akusala side possible, and sometimes and kusala side. So chanda is not all chanda is akusala. We have to consider. So, but for lobha, all lobha there's akusala, all kinds of lobha, and there's the difference between lobha and chanda desire. So in this lesson we will study lobha, because in this lesson will come the akusala group. So here, in the occasional feathers, as I said, the occasional feather associated with the different groups, sometimes to akusala, but not always. So sometimes to kusala, even to the functional. When the heart's mind, the functional consciousness arise. Also, sometimes the chanda arise. Like this, Brahmana Sariputta, he wished to offer the rope to the Brahmana Ananda like this, for example. At that time, in the Brahmana Sariputta's process, the functional consciousness arise because his arhat is already arhat. But at that moment, he went to offer a rope to Brahmana Ananda. That is chanda is there. So in that case, we understand, oh, this is chanda, this is not lobha. Okay, so another one. Here, the mental feathers are linked with the 89 or 121 citta. I just want to review again, and because I already explained this one, and the mental feathers and connection with the group of consciousness. So the first group, Anyasamana group, and second group, Akusala group, and the third, Thopana group, like this. So let's question and answer the Anyasamana group subdivided into two. Can you bring the group, two group?
Sabachita Sadarana 7 and 6 Pakinaka.
Right. Okay. Savachita Sararana and Pakinaka 7 and 6 become the 13. And Akusala, oh, do you remember how many group we divided? Leader by, yeah, okay, 4.
Moha, then Lopa, Dosa, and the other one is the other remaining 3.
Okay, so Moha group how many?
4.
4. And Loba group?
3.
3. So 7. And Dosa group?
4.
11. And the other?
3.
3 more.
So altogether 14, right? Then, so Savana-Cetasika divided into how many groups?
4.
4, okay. So let's find first group.
Beautiful 19.
Okay, universal, right? That is
Universal
19.
19.
Then
Abstinence 3.
abstinence 3.
And
Illimitable.
Apamanya 2.
Yeah, Abhamanya illimitable 2. And
Panya 1.
Penyandariya wisdom faculty 1. So 19,
3, 2,
1.
1.
Okay. So in this way, Savana 25. Okay, so let's see. Here there's 7 universal and 6 occasional. So 7 universal are linked with the every type of consciousness. So 89 or 121. Then 6 occasional, this is the most difficult part. If we find the connection with the metaphysics and consciousness, the most difficult is only occasional. The others are not difficult. And do you remember which one is the most difficult part in the consciousness?
Ahituka.
Ahituka, right? Okay. So if you study Ahituka and the others, it's not difficult to remember. And here also, when we find the link, consciousness and mental fetter are only in case of occasional difficulty. Others are very easy. And here, akusala side here, the 14 mental fetters link only with the unwholesome. You're very clear. Only with the unwholesome. How many? Unwholesome?
12.
12.
12.
So you just need to consider only 12 in this case. And the other consciousness you don't need to consider because the agusala cetasika, the unwholesome fetter, they are not associated with the other kinds of consciousness. In the same way, for the last part, the beautiful feathers, 25 or 25, they are connected to only their beautiful types of consciousness. So the Sovana, how many Sovana consciousness?
59.
59/91.
Yeah, 59 or 91 in large, right? Very good knowledge. You already get to remember, the not easy, this suggestion. I happy to know you all are doing well. And so later, after reviewing this, and you will find out how you can count how you can collect the consciousness. And even now, if we say how many consciousness associated with the feeling?
89.
89, right?
121.
Okay, so how many consciousness associated with the one-pointedness?
All
the same, right? But how many consciousness can associate with the loba? At most, you have to consider only 12 unwholesome.
12 or
Always
8.
there. Yeah, but in this case, you can get at most 12 because it's a wholesome group, only in a wholesome group. And dosa also the same. The maximum is 12 like this. If we talk about the wisdom faculty as the beautiful mental fetters, and how many can be the maximum according to this?
47.
47.
47.
Yeah, this is you are going advanced. Actually, you just need to know the 59 at most, because this is beautiful mental fetters. So there must be the connection with only beautiful. But if you say the exactly, because you already know the 47. But for this lesson, you cannot know, right? For this lesson, you just keep in mind, okay, so there are 7 universal connected to all. For occasional, you just better to skip this time. And for all 14 unwholesome fetter, the maximum is only
12.
12. Yeah. And for any of beautiful fetters, the maximum is
59.
9. Yes, if you keep in mind step by step, the going for step by step, it is easy. Otherwise, it's not easy, confusing. Numbers come to confuse. You just need to keep the basis principle to consider step by step. It is easier than memorizing. And so now I introduce the way to consider, how to consider when you count the associated mental fetters and consciousness. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and let's continue to the Q&A session. Okay.
Thank you, Sayara, for the Abhidhamma Lecture today. For everyone joining us on stream, thank you for joining us today. The live stream will end here, and we will continue with the Q&A session on Zoom. May you all be happy, healthy. May you soon all realize the eternal peace of